Hey there, I'm Jonathan Copel. I'm here with Seniesa, SuperBad, Estrada, world champion boxer. Super excited to be here with her. She's great, and she's a woman, and she is a world champion. Hey, Seniesa, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Thanks for discussing this topic with me.
Yeah, and before we dive into the whole USA boxing and their new rule book and them letting the men compete with the women, I kind of wanted to ask you, like, what got you into this situation of being one of the best, if not the best, in the first place? Because you didn't get here by accident.
I didn't know. It was by the grace of God and God's plan for my life and God's plan for my career. I started boxing at the age of 8 when women's boxing wasn't very popular. It's grown a lot within the past few years, and we still have so much more to show to the world, so much more to prove, and so many more ways that we can grow the sport of women's boxing. So I'm just happy to be, that pioneer and that leader, someone that young girls can look up to and say, if she did it, I can do it too. So my father got me into boxing at a very young age.
Were there any people that kind of like motivated you that you would call an enemy that got you into boxing, like maybe a bully or a guy or anything like that?
I just fell in love with the sport of boxing when watching it with my father when I was about 6 years old, 7 years old. And from that moment, I was just like, man, this is what I want to spend my life doing. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's awesome. So, boxing's had a lot of controversies over the years, but I really want to know your thoughts on this recent decision by USA Boxing to allow transgenders to compete with biological women now in their new 2024 rule book.
Wow. I mean, it's so disappointing because women's boxing was just allowed into the Olympics in 2012. So it hasn't been very long. And now we have this other wall to break down with transgenders being allowed to fight women. And it's just, it's not right. It's going to push the sport of women's boxing back even more. I know so many young girls and women who work so hard and are so excited to see the sport of women's boxing finally growing. And now we have this stopping us from, moving forward and growing the sport of women's boxing. And I think it's not right. It's going to crush the dreams of so many little girls and so many women in the sport who work so hard. And I think there needs to just be a separate transgender category. And when I posted about this on my social media, on my Instagram, about USA Boxing allowing transgenders to fight women, I got a message from a transgender fighter, and she said that she totally agrees with me that she wants boxing to create a separate transgender division. So, I mean, I'm glad that there's at least one transgender that agrees with my opinion and opinion of many others. So, hopefully there can be enough backlash. There's gotta be some kind of backlash. There's gotta be people stepping up and speaking up about this before it gets out of control, before it gets out of hand. And I think if I had a daughter who was in amateur boxing, USA amateur boxing, I wouldn't take her to any boxing show. I wouldn't take her to enter her in any boxing tournament. And every parent who has a daughter that is fighting in USA amateur boxing needs to step up and come together and do that. And hopefully we can start a change there with that.
Yeah, I don't think many people probably don't understand how USA Boxing is the stepping stone to the Olympics. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Would you mind explaining a little bit of how that process works from being a kid, you're going to the local boxing gym, you start competing and qualifying, and how that can get you actually to the Olympics?
Yeah, USA Boxing is what gets us to the Olympics. I started amateur boxing at 8 years old. I had over 100 amateur fights with 105 wins and 5 losses, and I was ranked number 1 in the United States. So USA Boxing was a big part of my childhood and a big part of why I am the fighter that I am today and how successful I am. So all young girls and all women who are in amateur boxing now, this is the start. All of their dreams when they enter USA Boxing is, if not to turn pro, to go to the Olympics first. And like I just mentioned, in 2012, we were finally able to represent women's boxing in the Olympics. And it hasn't been long, and now we have this hurdle to jump over, and it's a very disappointing thing.
It makes me think about, remember when MMA had that, oh God, what was the name? There was a transgender fighter that joined the MMA, started fighting, breaks Tamika Bent's skull. Okay, it's something Fox. I can't remember her name. But the man joins MMA, competes, starts breaking skulls and injuring the opponents because men and women are obviously different. Anybody who doesn't believe that is a psychopath and needs mental help, needs some therapy. What kind of injuries would you imagine seeing if you had teenagers and you have some, boys when they're 12 and 13 are pretty light. They have more strength than a girl at that same age, but they're light. So they might compete at like 115 pounds. What kind of injuries do you think would happen if you have a guy that's maybe 110, 115 fighting a girl that's at a similar weight?
Oh, this is, this is something that I think about all the time. I mean, I've started boxing at the age of 8 years old, so nobody can tell me that we are the same. Nobody can tell me that we have the same strength, because we do not. We are different. We're born different, made differently, different DNA, different bone structure. And I know that because I grew up in the gym as one of the only girls training in Los Angeles, because there wasn't many young girls and women fighting when I was coming up. So I always had to spar with boys. But at a certain age, I stopped sparring with boys because their strength is different. At the age of maybe some boys at the age of 13, you can feel the man strength coming in. You can feel the difference. So, I have a teammate now who I train with, and he's 14 now, but started training with my team when he was about 11 years old. And we would spar together. I weigh 115 pounds. He was weighing about 108 pounds. Spar together from maybe the age of 11 to 13. Once he hit 14, I stopped sparring with him because that man's strength was coming in and his punches felt different. So, and I mean, even now, me sparring with a woman who's 25, 30 years old, who's the same weight as I am, the strength is different than me sparring a boy who's 14 years old. He's going to hit harder than that 25, 30-year-old woman, no matter what. So that's something that people really need to understand. It can be very, very dangerous. And it doesn't matter what science says about whatever, they can inject themselves with whatever they want to. Their bone structure is still different, and they still spent many years developing into a man.
Yeah, that's true. And I think about the swimmer Riley Gaines. She's like one of the only female athletes that has really gone just out and about on this particular topic, because she experienced it. She was a swimmer, and she tied for 5th place with transgender University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas in the 200-meter NCAA championship. And she was talking about this in an interview with Fox, but putting the transgenders in the competitions with women are robbing women of titles that they're just being given access to. You said 2012. Okay, we just got access to this in boxing, and now it's basically about to be gone because no woman is going to be able to compete with a man at the amateur boxing level. I don't care what anybody says. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we need to put a stop to it now. We need to have more people speaking out about this, more parents, more fighters. And, I'll do whatever I can, just as Riley did, to try to protect and help these young girls and women who are in amateur boxing.
Did you see this coming?
You know what, with the way things are changing in the world, and with other sports allowing transgenders to compete with women, I did see this coming, but it's like you see it coming, but when it actually happens, it kind of still shocks you and surprises you, because
it's so hard.
I just didn't think that, USA boxing and boxing would come to this. It's a lot different. I mean, of course, it's for any women's sport, it's bad, but this is a contact sport where we already have enough danger as it is punching each other in the face, but to be punched in the face by a biological man is, it's a lot different and more dangerous.
I mean, what do you think about, it always shocks me. It's constantly men or the transgender women. So the former men, whatever, that they want to compete with the women, but you never see women signing up to compete with the men. Like, you're not going to see women want to go fight the bantamweight men. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see that. That would be a bloodbath.
It would, yeah. I would never challenge any male fighter who's the flyweight champion of the world. I would probably get knocked out with a jab. So it's like I said, it's the strength is just different. It's just everything about it is just, they're just different. They're men, so we can't compete with that. Faster, stronger, and I think Bruce Jenner is a transgender himself, considered transgender, right? Or
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
You got it.
So yeah, Bruce Jenner is a transgender himself, and he agrees that biological men should not compete with women, because he knows, he even says himself, I can still hit the golf ball just as hard and just as fast, and I'm just as strong as I've ever been. Doesn't matter, the way he might be changing his body, he still has that strength.
Yeah, it's sad. I think about, I just got to see Patrick Bet-David at an event recently, and he's got his book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And he digs in about how people go through life and they never pick an enemy, maybe because they're scared to, maybe because they don't realize in life we do have enemies. It can be yourself, another person, the government, the IRS, or in this case, this sick ideology that's coming in and destroying a generation entirely. And I think right now, people have to identify this woke mind virus as an enemy collectively. People like yourself, people like Riley Gaines, other influencers, other athletes, people with some sort of influence that they can leverage, and really identify this as a menace to society. And so, you're willing to do that, which I think is amazing, and not many people do. And I want to ask you maybe your opinion on why other athletes and people of influence are afraid of this topic, because it's so in your face today that you can't avoid it, but a lot of people don't want to touch it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to touch on it, athletes, celebrities. And I think, it's very difficult. There's a lot of things that I believe in that I don't speak on, just because all of, with social media nowadays, you get hate, you get attacked if you don't agree with what everybody else wants you to agree with, and what the media and everyone else is throwing out there into the world. You'll get attacked, and a lot of athletes lose sponsorships, endorsement deals, just hate from fans and things like that. But this is not about hating transgender people. It's nothing to do with that. It's what's right and what is wrong. And if I don't speak up about it, how many other fighters and the professionals are going to do it, or how many other amateur boxers are going to do it? How many parents are going to step up and do it? I don't know. Hopefully there's more that will, but I just know in my heart and in my mind that I need to speak up for these young girls and for these women who are in amateur boxing.
Wow. That's good. I'm glad to see that, because like I said, there's not a lot of people who do it. And I think back to my time when I used to be a public school teacher, and there were talks about letting the boys use the girls' locker room and the girls go to the boys' locker room. And I decided to talk about it. I was kind of shocked that more people didn't think the same way as me on that particular issue. I was really shocked. And then I was also shocked to realize how many people agreed with me, but they wouldn't say anything because they were scared. And so if you could, any final words of encouragement to some other professional athletes or high status individuals that are maybe on the fence about speaking out on this issue, any words of courage for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage all parents who have daughters and young women in amateur boxing to stand up, speak out about it. just speak your mind and say that this is not right. And your children, your daughters and young girls put in so much hard work to grow the sport of women's boxing that's been, thrown under the ring for so long. And we're finally in a position where we are fighting on TV, we're making good money, we're getting signed by big promoters in professional boxing, and now we're allowed to fight in the Olympics. Like, that's so much, that's so many years of just hard work and dedication from strong women who just love the sport of boxing, and we can't let that get taken away from us. So I encourage all parents and all other female fighters as well to just stand up and say something.
That's great. That's great. I hope they do. I really do. I think silent parents and just silent people are a big problem for society. There's a lot more people that know what's right, but they just won't do what's right because they choose to remain silent. So I want to thank you, number one, for choosing not to be silent and just for being who you are and being a voice for the. I'm picturing these girls that are at the amateur boxing tournaments, and I'm seeing them competing with, skinny Timmy. He looks skinny. He looks like he's the same weight, but he's just knocking him out. He's just rocking Sally. He's knocking her out, first round, 20 seconds in. It looks like a Mike Tyson fight or something. And so I don't think people really are grasping how serious this is. And so thank you so much for talking about it. And
thank you. Yeah, I think, if this continues, when are they going to put a stop to it? When someone's daughter gets hurt, gets seriously injured, knocked out in a fight, sent to the hospital? Is that when we're going to put a stop to this?